Welcome. Hi, it is day 4 of the Get Ready With Me Back to School Series 2024. And today we're talking all things elements of music. And I'm going to be focusing on mind maps, listening cards, and term cards today. Here in my state, we talk about the concepts of music, which I'll be talking about tomorrow. So a lot of what I talked about today can be still applied to the concepts of music. And what I talk about tomorrow can be applied to the elements of music. So they cross over nicely. But who am I? Hi, I'm Jooya from Jooya Teaching Resources, and I'm a music teacher with over 20 years of experience in the grades 7 to 12 music classroom. I said today we're going to be looking at the elements of music, and don't forget, if you want to win yourself everything that I'm showcasing this week, make sure you put in the comments watching here on the Facebook page, and I'll be looking at them on Sunday, and then I'll be doing the draw on Monday. So some lucky person is going to have the chance to win everything that I'm showing this week. Absolutely everything that I'm showing this week, probably with a few other things that I'll throw in. But as I said, you need to be, if you're watching this on YouTube, you need to be popping over to the Facebook page, as I said, over on Jooya Teaching Resources. And today's date for me is the 18th of January. So if you're watching this after the events happened, just enjoy the information. Anyway, why would we want to talk about the elements of music? What are the benefits of having the elements of music and teaching the elements of music? Well, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that everything I do is based around the elements of music, because it's a good way for what I think is actually the best way to get kids involved in a piece of music. So I'm just going to pop that fan on because it's rather warm here today. But as I said, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you should actually be teaching the elements of music. So the first one, it just provides your students with a strong foundation in musical literacy. It gives them the language to actually talk about music, and that's what we really want. So that's number one, is foundation of musical literacy. Number 2, expressive communication for talking about music. So once you've actually given them that language, then they can actually talk about music in a critical way and in an analytical way, which is what we want. We want our kids to be able to communicate in musically, instead of saying, I like that beat. How many times do you say that? I can't tell you the number of times I've said to kids, you know, you're doing a listening test and you go through the questions and you say to them, no matter what you think, the drums cannot play the melody. So please do not put drums play the melody. And inevitably, some kid does. Anyway, but we want to avoid that. We want to give them the tools and the communication, the language to be able to express and communicate about music. The next one, critical listening skills. These all really interlock, okay? So number 3 is critical listening skills. If you give your kids the language to talk about it, and then you get them to listen through the lens of an element of music, they can think about the music without an opinion. They can just think about how the music is using that particular element of music, as opposed to going, I don't like that piece of music. Well, you may not like it, but what can you appreciate about it? And we all know that we can appreciate things even if we don't necessarily like them, okay? The next one is analytical thinking. So once you've got them thinking critically about the piece of music, then they can start to analyze what they're listening. And that's where they can start to think about comparisons. They can talk about different genres, and even between within a composer or a style of music, different ways that they can actually talk about the piece of music in an analytical way. The next one, effective music creation. Now, this could be creating music as in performing music or composing music. And when you give the kids a reason to actually talk about the music and give them a way to actually talk about it in a critical way or an analytical way through the elements of music, they actually know what they're actually aiming for. So for example, when I do a composition, depending on what we've actually been studying, I might say that, you know, in the composition or in the performance, they have to focus on certain things, and it might be a variation in texture, variation in dynamics, variations in structure. And I want to see, you know, different things. And if they're not actually presenting those things in their composition or in their performance, then you've got that a way to actually give them feedback and say, well, okay, how can we actually change what you're doing here to add in some more variety about the structure or whatever, okay? Next one, performance enhancement. Again, it's a really fantastic way. So we're up to number 6. It's a fantastic way of using the elements of music to improve a student's performance. Now, for my senior students, and I probably will try it with my my year 11, sorry, 9s and 10s this year. I've got a year 10 class. I will ask them to actually analyze how they are using the elements of music or concepts of music within their performance piece. So what is the music? What is the time signature they're performing? What key are they performing in? What is the structure of the music? What are the dynamics they're using in each section? And if they can tell me those things, I can see if they've got a solid understanding. If they can't tell me those things, then we have a bit of a problem and I've got to go back and help them. But the kids who do that and the ones who have done that for me in the past, usually their performances are up here. Whereas other kids who are struggling, that analytical skills using through the lens of elements of music, it shows me a lot of things that they're struggling in a lot of ways. Okay, so performance enhancement was number 6. Number 7, cultural awareness. It doesn't matter what piece of music you present for your kids to actually perform. They can listen to it and appreciate it no matter where the music is from through the lens of the elements of music. And I really love that. So it doesn't matter where the music comes from, they can still think about the music and how the elements of music were used within that piece of music. So cultural awareness. Interdisciplinary connections. So this is number 8. I'm not even going to try to say it again. Making connections between subjects. That's an easier way to actually say it. So basically, you want your kids to be able to say, oh, what I'm learning here in music, I can apply that to my English essays. I can apply that to maths in this way. I can apply this, and making those connections. We know as musicians, okay, that we make those connections, especially to history and all those sorts of things and cultural awareness, but we want our kids to be able to do that as well. The next one is personal social development. This one, number 9, it's a sort of a soft skill that's in there that the elements of music helps with, but it does because it gives the kids, again, that way of communicating. And the last one is a lifelong learning and enjoyment of music. We want our kids to be able to enjoy music beyond the music classroom, and the elements of music can help them appreciate that. So that if they are, say, for example, invited to an opera and they've never been in their life, and they may not necessarily like the music, but they certainly can appreciate and enjoy the musical skills involved in presenting that piece. Or if you're like me, I'm not necessarily a big country music fan. However, I can appreciate the skills of those musicians. I can appreciate how they put the music together. May not necessarily like it, but that's me. Okay, so again, it gives everybody that way of actually being able to enjoy a piece of music through a different lens. So let's keep moving on. I'm going to be talking about the 10 ways to use elements of music mind maps. Now, I love these mind maps. I developed them specifically for the blog posts that I wrote a few years ago, which are over on my website, jooya.com, which is how most people find me. They find me through the elements of music and those particular blog posts. And each of those mind maps that is on each of those blog posts, I use them. I developed them so I could use them and I needed them. And it was something that my kids enjoyed, something that they could hold on to and grasp and could understand. And I figure, again, if it was working for my kids, it should work for other kids. So let's have a look at what these elements of music ones. So I'm going to show you here. I've got them. Whoops. It doesn't really matter where I start. Elements of music mind maps. Now these, as I said, are on my website. These are exactly what they are. I think these are in the actual the product itself. When you get them, you can get a freebie, which is blank versions of this, which is just black and white, which is the free version. But if you want the color versions that I use in the classroom, these are the ones that you can get. As I said, these are fantastic because it just breaks it down for each element of music. And I like them like this. I've literally printed them off, and you can see there with a split ring, so that I've actually got sets so we can do group work based on using the elements of music. So let me just go to timbre. That'll do. That'll be the one I just happened to pull out, and I've got green on today, so why not? Okay, but these are the things that, you know, if you're listening to a piece of music, you want them to actually talk about this. So you want them to be able to identify the instrument. You want to be able to classify the instrument, explain how they make a sound, describe how the instrument sounds, and then talk about the range, roll, and register of that instrument within that piece of music. And so that's timbre. But again, this is a really good tool. These look fantastic when they're actually made, if you print them twice the size, and that's how I usually use them in the classroom. I put them around the walls as again, a reference point. But this year, I've decided to actually print them in sets like this so that I can use it for a lot of group work. But how else can we use them? So I said, I've got 10 ways for you to use these simple things. And in like this little product's only about what, $5 or $6 in my store, but it can be used so many different ways. And I hope that you find some of these very useful. So term and vocab exploration. So timbre, for again, we're just looking at that one. So that you can look at the different ways, you know, the different ways we can identify an instrument. What are the different ways we can classify? So we're talking about different vocab that we're introducing there. And this ties in with the elements music term cards, which I'll be talking about in a minute. Listening analysis maps. Now, this is just a nice, simple way to have this there for a kid and say, okay, I want you to listen to this piece of music, and you might divide each your class into different groups, and you might be looking, one group might look at timbre, one group might look at structure, one group might look at texture or tonality, whatever it happens to be. And you give them this, and in a group, they can determine how things are actually, how that element of music is being used in that piece of music. So again, this is just a nice way for them to actually map it out. So they can then, you know, from here, identify all the instruments that they can hear. Then they're going to classify all the instruments. Then they're going to actually explain how the instrument makes a sound, etc. Okay, so that's the different ways that we can actually use that one as well. Number 3. Oh, I missed one. The first one is just an introduction. Introduction, an overview, shows them an overview. Don't know why I've missed that one. That was number 1. Number 1 was an introduction to the element of music. Number 2 was for terms and vocab exploration, like discussions. 3 as a listening analysis map. Okay, a good way to do that. It's a good way to actually get kids to maybe jot down ideas when they're listening to the piece of music via using the mind map. It's great for composition mapping. Okay, I include these in my assessments. And I actually, whenever we're talking about composition or listening, I get the kids to actually map it out. So it's a bit of a planning tool. I use it as a planning tool. Performance preparation, same deal. Preparation for their performances. And it's also like if you get them and you're looking at getting them to have a think about it, then you can go, well, we're missing something. How have you used the elements of music? Where are we missing something? Where could we actually add something into this performance? So that's another one. Another one is for comparing, okay, pieces of music. So use this same framework to actually talk about and compare a piece of music. Let me just get a different one up. Excuse me. Yeah, texture will do. All right, texture will do. And yeah, good way to actually do a comparative listening map. Again, good way to do discussions, okay, in terms of even if they're not necessarily writing things down, but actually having a discussion about things before they actually go and answer the question. Great for that. Also great for revision and review in terms of, you know, just having this information there to help them revise what they need to know. As part of an assessment, as I said, I use this in my composition and performance assessments all the time, and my listening assessments. I actually use them in all of them. Oh, excuse me. I use them in every single one because everything is based in this, okay? And the last one as a basis for providing feedback, which I sort of talked about before, but again, it's that performance so that, you know, especially like if they're doing, say, a small ensemble group, and you might say, well, you're not necessarily following the structure, or you're not necessarily working together coherently in, you know, with your texture. How can we change the texture? How can we make it, you know, not the same texture all the way through? How can you actually make sure that each structure, if each part of your structure, okay, is a little bit different? So, and again, that might be through texture. It might be through tonality. How can you make each part of the piece of music different? Again, it's a way to actually provide feedback, okay? So that's the different ways that we can use the elements of music mind maps. And I said, these are, you can get a free version of this on my blog at jooya.com if you just pop your information in there, but they're blank ones. They're blank versions. So yeah, so that's what that is. So hang on for a minute. I've just got to close the door. Sorry about that. Today's the day that everything just goes a bit crazy, is it? Okay, so that's the listening maps. Now, the next thing are the listening analysis questions. Now, I've made these quite little, alrighty, and I'll be talking about the concepts and music ones, but I'm just going to share my screen because I'll show you what the actual, what it actually looks like. Hang on, let me get this one up. That's the one I want, and I want that one, and share. Alrighty, so you can see there, this is the actual file that's on the screen there of what I've got here in my hand. And you can see it's upside down, okay? But it's deliberately printed that way, or so that when you print it, it actually comes out like this, okay? So that the kids can actually use them. That's the way it is. It's deliberately done there. So that's the actual file. And I've also got in this particular one, a video instruction on how to actually put them together. So I'll stop share for a moment. But this is actually part of the Elements of Music Google ones I've done recently. Again, because, well, everything always happens because of what's happening at school. But my school is moving to, in the next, I think, 2 years, they want to be paperless. So that takes a bit of, a bit to get there. So I've been creating digital versions of a lot of my things. But I use these listening cards. So again, a bit like the mind maps, and I've included the mind maps in here, and I just printed 2 to a page. That's why they're nice and little. Okay, the mind map. So, but in each of these listening questions, hopefully you can see that, and I'll show you the actual document in a minute, but these are the questions that the kids need to be focusing on. This is level 1, okay? There's other levels that you can do as well, but this is how I use these cards mainly. And again, let me show you the file so you can see what I'm talking about. Go back there, share, here we go, alrighty. So this is the actual whole big one. If this is just on dynamics, but this is exactly the same for each of the elements of music. There's these sets. So I've got a lot of different ones, but this is, I think, I like this version the best. So it gives you some information, how to do this, how to use them. Alrighty, it gives you links to each of the elements of music, how you can do a music writing paragraph, which is a whole other video. And if you click that, you'll actually end up with your Google Slides version, which is all ready for kids to go. So this is actually set up as part of a listening analysis assignment. So this is the perfect way to use these cards, giving you some marking rubrics, and also some analysis, and then also review questions. I know I'm going through this quickly, but we're a bit late today. But these are the questions. So is the song, overall loud or soft? Are there any changes? What are the dynamics for the first section, second section, and third section? So it gives the kids something to talk about. And then if you're doing a comparison, again, they get to answer about both questions. But with these listening cards, you just get them to repeat that. You just get them to put a line down the page and get them to, answer the questions for song 1 and answer the questions for song 2. And then they can put it into the music framework, which is what I developed a few years ago. And the nice thing about this one is I give you a sample, an idea and a sample, and then give you also 2 other samples, a good one and a not so good one, but they're great as a teaching tool. So that's what that looks like in that form, but that's where the questions have come from that, okay, which is essentially all the questions I've got in my that other sets if you've got them, but these are just broken down so that it's a nice little set for the kids to use. So if you were focusing on, I have enough for each kid, and then I actually say, well, go there, and it even comes with a sample paragraph for the music sample paragraph, so the kids have got an idea if you want them to actually write in paragraph form, for each of the elements of music. So how can we actually use them? So here we are. So great for listening journal prompts. For example, our year 7s are going to be doing a listening journal that will actually take them all year to do. But each term, we're going to be giving them a certain number of songs for them to actually put into their listening journal to complete, so that we will actually complete that listening analysis at the end of the year. It's a nice, big formative assessment, nice and long one. And it's just a way of, keeping them going all the way through the year. Great for small group discussions, these questions, so that you might give them, you might have 2 or 3 things that you want to focus on, and you give everybody, split them up into groups, and each group's doing something different. And then you can have present that in different ways. You can have a class discussion about it, or they could do a gallery walk, or they could do jigsaws, you know, where one person from each group goes to another one and they talk about it, all that sort of thing. It's great for doing peer-led presentations. In other words, you could be doing research on a musician, composer, genre, or style. This is all about the elements of music appreciation, using these questions to appreciate the music that you're studying in class. Great for obviously musical analysis activities and also comparative listening, which I've sort of talked about. So these are a fantastic little tool. I pull these things out every listening lesson. Every time we do a listening lesson, I'll say, okay, we're doing structure today, go find the structure one. And then we'll go through that. So I don't actually give them a piece like a sheet or a worksheet to work on, because I have these sets set up and they're in the classroom, and I'll say, you need your listening cards today, go get your listening cards. I'll put on the piece of music and I'll say, okay, we're looking at structure today, or we're looking at tonality today, or we're looking at melody, whatever it happens to be. And they find those things, and then we actually go them that. That's the easiest way to do it, and it's the best way to get them just used to doing these things. Then there's the term cards. So you need all, like these, I said, these are also interlinked. It's not funny. So with the term cards, as I said, I had them yesterday. So this is these ones. Oh, yes. Okay, these are set up. I don't think these actually match. No, it's definitely, these two don't actually match at all. That's not the right thing. Okay, but matching games, so that you've got the term on one side, okay, on one card, and the definition on another. Okay, term definition might be easier to see there. And literally you play memory. You put them all out upside down, and the kids, you know, flip over two cards, and if they happen to match, they get to keep them. If they don't, they have to go again and go around the actual groups. Fantastic for small group games. I use that game a lot. Okay, you could use your elements of music term cards also as term of the day. So it might be that you actually display it and say, okay, or 4 terms for the day, depending on how many you want to do, and have them displayed, and ask the kids to actually write down those terms and talk about those terms each, 4 terms each day, again, or term for the week, or the concept of the week, element of the week. It's up to you. Interactive word wall, they are fantastic having displayed around the walls. Alrighty, it's so many kids remember the terms if you actually have them displayed. And I've got a different set that I haven't got here for me, but in my thing, which are basically it's a PowerPoint presentation, but it's PDF, but it's that sort of size, so it fits nicely on your screen when you're displaying it in the classroom, or they print really nicely and they look great on the wall. And I can't tell you the number of times I'll say, okay, well, what does homophonic mean? And the kids go, oh, and I'll go, don't forget the word wall. And then they go and find it, and then it gives them that confidence. Oh, that's what that means. Okay, obviously you want to take those sort of things down if you're doing a test. Okay, you want to do that, want to cover that up. Great for vocabulary review games as well, obviously for learning the terms, but also review games. So obviously one game could be memory. Another one is that I like to use them is I have them printed. So these are some structure ones. So this is, when you get these particular ones, this is what it looks like when it's actually printed, all right, to the page. So literally that structure is that definition. So I will cut that bit out, I fold it, and then I will have it means that then you have the term on one side and the definition on the other. And what you can do, there's so many different games you can do with that. So many different ones. It's not funny. It's great if you have a small group and you put them all in the group, and you teach the kids how to actually question. In other words, how can we actually or what does homophonic mean? And then someone in the group has to say what it means, and if they get it right, fantastic, goes in the middle. If they don't get it right, you actually say homophonic means, you teach the kids to flip it over, homophonic means blah blah blah, okay? And then you ask the kid again, what does homophonic mean? And they should know it because you've just told them. And then instead of putting it into the middle, you put it at the back so that everybody gets to know all the terms. That's a Kagan strategy. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Kagan strategy. Another one is mixed phrase group. You get them to actually, if you've got them set up like these ones where you've got terms and definitions, you make sure you've got them matched and out enough for each child so that there's nobody's going to be not have a match, and you get them to mix phrase groups. So literally they put some music on, they walk around the room, they change cars, you stop the music. Once they've the music is stopped, they then have to find their partner. So the term and the definition have to match, and you make sure that they've got it all correct. And that's a nice fun game to actually do as well. I love doing that one. It's a nice one. And obviously it's really good to use these with, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to drop that, with these. In other words, give them the mind map, give them the terms, and then ask them to put all the terms where they're supposed to be. Where should the homophonic actual term go? Well, that should go with, where is it? The type of phony. And I know phony is not a right word, not a real word. It's a bit hard to see. Phony is a phony word, and I tell kids that, but it's a nice way for them to remember homophonic, monophonic, polyphonic. Okay, all that sort of stuff. So they can use all these terms to map it to their mind maps. Again, another way to use all these manipulatives. I love using them for that reason. Again, it's just another way to get the kids interacting, not only with each other, but also with the actual terminology. Another one you could do is use them for one pages. I love using them for that. I just give them the cards and I say, you've just got to be able to use, get all the definitions for every single card. And I just put them all out and they come and get 2 or 3 each. They sit there and write in their book and write a definition. And then they write, do some sort of image to help them remember. And then they go and swap them. And as it's just a nice, really simple lesson. One way to do it, gallery walk, find someone who's another good game to actually play with them. Inside, outside circle, I'll explain that one again in a minute, and mixed phrase group. So inside, outside circle, again, another Kagan strategy. Make sure that each kid has got a term and definition. And like I was just sort of saying with the small group one, you basically, every kid has a card in their hand, and one side has the definition, the other side has the term. And yet they, in their circle, okay, they're facing each other. And one kid asks the other and says, well, what does structure mean? And the other student has to answer what structure means. And if they get it correct, then they say, good job, fantastic. If they don't, they tell them what a structure, the definition is. Then the other student has to go and they ask them, whatever their one happens to be, what is binary form? And so that other kid has to answer what binary form is. And if they get it correct, fantastic. And then the one who got it wrong, if they got it wrong, they ask them again and they'll get it right. Then they swap cards. And then when they swap cards, you then get one person in the circle to move around one person. So now they've all got a different card and they've got a different definition, and that every kid gets to learn from each other each of the definitions. It's a really good way to do it. I really, really love it. And obviously then another simple one, the last one you can use term cards is for flashcard review sessions. Right. I'm sorry that I was late today. As I said, it was just one of those days and technical difficulties. So I'll get off here pretty quickly. But as I said, look, thank you very much for hanging around. Don't forget, if you are watching this, tell me you are watching it in the comments so that you can be part of the draw, okay? So that I'll go through and see that you've actually been watching. Remember, if you're on YouTube, though, when you're watching this here on YouTube, that the competition is only for people who are commenting there over on Facebook. Okay, so until next time, as I said, I've talked about elements of music today. Tomorrow we're talking about the concepts of music and all things concepts of music, and what I'm actually going to be using with my own kids in the classroom, exactly what I'm using with my grade 9, 10, 11 and 12. Okay, exactly what I'm using. And then I'll be on Saturday, I'm actually showing you the units of work I'm using with my year 7s and my year 10s. Okay, so I'll be showing you exactly what I'm using with them as well. So until next time, I'm Jooya from Jooya Teaching Resources, and happy teaching. Bye.